Hi friends, I did quite a bit of traveling this summer, and let's just say it wasn't all easy or fun. It reminded me a lot actually of my journey of learning to trust God. There are a lot of unknowns when we travel. Things don't always go the way I expect them to, and the ride is sometimes bumpy. There are delays and expenses that you don't plan on. Do you ever feel like you get a long-awaited answer to prayer or a solution for a problem, and then things go smoothly for a while? But then another thing pops up and you're back to square one and trusting God for that new situation? Life can be really challenging. We have to put our trust in the Lord to get us through every situation. I know how it feels to find yourself in a challenge, wondering if or when God is going to come through for you. That's why I'm sharing 3 things you can do when you're on the learning curve of trusting God. Today, we are going to shift your trust into a higher gear. So if you're ready to do the work, grab your Bible and notebook, pour your latte, and let's dive in. Hi friends, welcome to the Awakened Christian Woman. Are you tired of distractions pulling you away from God? If you want to trust Him more and pray effectively, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Sarah, a wife, mom, and your Jesus-loving friend. I created simple disciplines I could actually stick with to awaken my faith. So if you're ready for practical takeaways you can use right away, jump out of bed, turn off that alarm clock, and make yourself a strong latte. It's time to let the sun shine in your life. This podcast is a labor of love and it's completely free. I'd love to know what you think. To share how this episode inspired or encouraged you, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Also, if you're enjoying this podcast, click the follow button wherever you listen so that you don't miss a single episode. All of us have experienced learning curves when it comes to trusting God. Sometimes the learning curve of faith feels steeper during certain seasons of our lives. I remember one such time when I didn't even recognize that I needed to grow in my dependence on the Lord. As I look back, I can see now the baby steps of faith building that were taking place in my walk with God. I was an elementary teacher then, and my life was really busy and challenging. I had a classroom with 32 students, which, by the way, is more than any teacher should have, but I really enjoyed teaching. I also enjoyed working with teachers. My colleagues seemed to look to me for leadership, so I enrolled in a master's degree program that, I kid you not, required me to attend graduate-level courses for one entire weekend each month for almost 2 years. We're talking Friday evening to Sunday evening, and I had to study on the other weekends. I think that's when my coffee habit kicked into high gear. When I look back on that, it seems incredibly crazy that I would give up my weekends to do all that extra study after working all week, teaching in a classroom, and having a young family besides. What was I thinking? Apparently, I wasn't the only silly one, because 20 other teachers also signed up for the same program. Anybody else ever been overly ambitious with their career? Well, I'm not gonna lie, it was a ton of work. I was so exhausted every single night, and the tuition bill hit my bank account every month. There were so many times when I wanted to stop. It was hard. I missed my kids while I was studying, and I wondered whether my efforts would ever pay off. A couple of years later, with my master's degree in hand, I started applying for administration jobs in my school district. I felt like God was behind me. He'd helped me get through the master's program with my career intact, and thank goodness my family still recognized me. I had been committed to my school, and I was in great standing with my employer. In fact, I had recommendation letters from people at the very top of the organization. There was no reason why I should have had any trouble finding a job as a school principal. Now, back in those days, I had faith, but it was not as strong as it is now. I simply trusted that the Lord would open a door and help me get the job I wanted right away. Several jobs opened up, and I spent hours preparing for each and every interview. I wasn't stumped by any of the interview questions. But afterwards, I always got the dreaded calls from HR. You know, those calls in which they say the exact same thing? It goes something like, "We're sorry, your interview went well, but we've offered the job to someone else." Rejection is a funny thing because you never really get used to it. Every time I was crushed, I felt overlooked. It felt so unfair. My trust in God was beginning to waver by this point. Where was He? I felt entirely deflated, and I wondered what the use was in applying for jobs if I wasn't going to get one. My number one struggle at that time was not having answers, wondering what I did wrong or what I did to deserve this, while still choosing to trust the Lord in the giant void and with my feelings of unfairness. Sometimes we strive for a long time before we realize that we need to surrender our situation to the Lord. I had to come to grips with the fact that He never told me to apply for any of these jobs. He never told me to get a master's degree. I had chosen to do that myself. He had given me the opportunity, and He'd been faithful to give me the energy and the strength to do all of that. But He never guaranteed that I would get a job promotion. And as hard as it was, I had to realize that might not even be His will for me. I had been so hyper-focused on what I wanted that I hadn't stopped to even ask what He wanted. So after a lot of striving on my own, I had to put it all in God's hands. There are times when we want things. Maybe we want a job or a business to grow. Maybe we want a house or a relationship, or we want to have a child. Sometimes it all works out nicely. Sometimes God gives us exactly what we want when we want it. Other times He doesn't give us those things because He has a different plan for us. Or the timing isn't right, or there's work He needs to do in us before we'll be ready to have what we've been asking Him for. There are some things that only the Lord can unlock for us, too. He has His own timing for doing that. And then there are times when we don't get what we want, and we don't know the reasons why. Maybe we'll never know, but He knows. These are the hardest ones to accept, the prayers for which the answer is no. Like children begging their mom or dad for a toy at the store, the answer of no leaves us disappointed. We never stop to think that maybe we have enough already, or that what we really need is to be content with what we have. Whatever the case, when our plans aren't working and we realize our need to surrender to His plan, something amazing happens. We're suddenly freed of the need to strive. We suddenly have a greater sense of peace. But how do you put your needs and wants into God's hands? Well, for me, it's always come down to prayer supported by a heart attitude of surrender. I don't remember the exact words that I prayed when I was going through that job situation, but it was something along the lines of, Lord, your word says that I should give all my cares to you. So if you want me to stay in my current job as a teacher this coming year, I accept that. If you want to open up a new job for me, please do it. I'm doing everything I can, but I don't know what else to do. I trust you to guide me. This is what I really want, but your plans for me might be different. Help me to accept your plans, whatever they are. I put my needs and desires into your hands, and I trust you to do your will in my life. The second thing we need to do when we're on that learning curve of trusting God is to keep doing what we know to do. Relying on the Lord doesn't mean doing nothing. There's a woman in the Bible named Hannah who wanted to have a child. Her faith was awakened, but it didn't happen overnight. She regularly asked the Lord for a baby for years, and still she went to the temple each year and she brought her yearly sacrifices, even though pregnancy eluded her. She kept worshiping the Lord even in her emotional pain as she bore societal reproach, and even though she wasn't getting what she wanted. She's a great example for us. Often we can't see a breakthrough coming, and the night seems darkest before the dawn. We have to trust that our answer will come and that God will give us the strength as we wait on His timing. Even though I felt discouraged because I wasn't being offered any of the jobs that I was applying for, I tried to keep a positive attitude. It was summer break by that time, and even though I still had my teaching job, a lot of the jobs that I had applied for had been filled. I applied for just one or two more that opened up, knowing I might not get an interview, and even if I did, I might not get the job. While I trusted God to lead me in the right direction, I kept doing what I had been doing because faith is an active endeavor. In Exodus chapter 17, we read about a battle that the Israelites had with the Amalekites. In that battle, Moses stood on a hill with his arms raised, holding a staff in the air. As long as his arms were raised, the Israelites had the advantage, but whenever his arms lowered, the Amalekites began to win. And when God wanted to give Moses the 10 Commandments, Moses had to first climb Mount Sinai. His climb to the summit of Mount Sinai was a challenging and steep, strenuous undertaking. Mount Sinai is 7,500 feet in elevation, and the fastest route to the top of it today in modern times has over 3,500 stairs. The Lord will remain on his throne even if we don't exercise our faith, even if we don't partner with him. God doesn't need us to do anything for him because he has no need of anything. But I don't see any scriptural evidence to support the idea of us doing nothing when we are trusting God to do something for us. I don't see any people in the Bible having a hands-off approach. I see them seeking God's will, partnering with that to the best of their ability, praying for victory, and showing up to the battle fully armored and ready to fight. When we show up and do our part, he meets us there. We have to keep stepping out in faith unless he directs us differently. He can handle all of our doubts and disappointments when our trust in him is shaky and wavering. Our faith might not feel like enough when doors aren't opening, but God can work with the little faith that you have. That isn't nothing. Your faith might be simple. It might be small, but he can use it. So after clicking the submit button on a job application, I packed my suitcase to visit my parents for a couple of weeks. As the plane left the tarmac, my heart was at peace. I had done all I knew to do. I knew there probably wouldn't be any more job openings that summer, and I had not been lazy. If God wanted to open the door for me to have a different job, I believed he could. And if he wanted me to stay in my current job, I could accept that. During that season of growing in my trust in the Lord, I thought of all the times he had been there for me. The times he had settled my nerves before I took a big test. The times he'd given me energy to stay up late studying. The times he helped me figure out solutions to problems. It's interesting to see what happens when we trust God and see him help us through one situation. Our faith becomes stronger because we know that even though the next challenge might be greater, he will still be faithful to help us get through it. Because we saw him do it once in our lives, we know he can do it again. When I remembered all the ways God had come through for me in the past, I was reminded, too, that he was always with me. I remembered he loved me, he cared for me, and I knew all of that by spending time in his word. Somehow, things have always worked out when I trusted him. They didn't always work out the way that I expected them to or when I wanted them to work out, but they always worked out eventually for my good. I bet you want to know how the story ends. Well, in the end, I wasn't offered a full-time principal job, which is what I wanted. Instead, I was offered a part-time assistant principal job coupled with a part-time teaching job. It was an interesting challenge and an interesting combination that allowed me to grow in my leadership skills while staying connected to students, which is something I really enjoyed. My Father God knew that's what I needed at the time to grow. And it turned out to be such a valuable learning and leadership experience. So if you've been finding it hard to trust God, if it feels like you're on a never-ending learning cycle, spend some time in prayer. Put your needs, wants, and struggles into God's hands. Keep doing what you know to do. You can't predict what God will do, but keep trusting him and showing up in the way you know how. And think back to all the times he has come through for you. Try to trust God with this issue because he showed himself faithful last time. Remember all the ways he has provided for you over time. He loves you, he cares for you, and as you continue to trust him, you can trust him to be there for you. Hey, I hope today's episode inspired you. If so, would you click the follow button for the show and share it with someone who wants to learn more about trusting God? Also, please take 30 seconds to leave me a quick review of the show on Apple Podcasts. It means so much to me to know this podcast is encouraging you. Set your alarm to wake up to Jesus in your mocha and meet me here every Tuesday for a new episode. See you soon.